Hi, my name is Louisa, and you won't believe it. But I and my twin sisters were switched at birth with another pair of identical siblings. I know it sounds super messed up, and I wish I could say it was only a bad joke, but it's really not. I'd love to tell you all about my story, hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone recognizes something similar happening to them. Growing up, my life seemed super normal. I got along amazingly with my twin sister. We did everything together and had so much in common. It was as if we were joined at the hip, like many siblings in our situation. But before we move on, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and activate the notification bell. This will let you live 20 amazing years longer. Trust me, it works. We looked just like each other, exactly like two drops of water. The same long blonde hair and pale skin and green eyes. Now, that's where things get super weird. You know why? Because neither of my parents are blonde, and they have dark eyes. So you might be thinking to yourself, that doesn't prove a thing. Perhaps a grandmom or granddad has those traits, and the gene just skipped a generation, or maybe two or three. And yeah, that's possible. That's why, as a kid, I never thought this fact was too odd. After all, it could happen. That being said, we didn't look like anyone else in our extended family. And this did seem to concern my mom and dad, even though they didn't let us know about it. Why should they be worried when dad was there at the hospital when my mother was giving birth to us? After all, he saw the nurse bathe us and put the little bracelet around our wrists, identifying us like their daughters, right? Well, no. And that's where things get messy. Mom's labor was really bad. There were lots and lots of complications. Let me tell you that. Her blood pressure suddenly spiked one night. As I'm not sure if you know anything about pregnancy and childbirth, this is super dangerous for both the baby and the mother, especially during the third trimester. When that happens, the doctors call it preeclampsia. You might not think it sounds too dangerous, but believe me, it can ruin everything. Mom began noticing her face and hands were so much more swollen than normal, even for pregnancy. She got these terrible headaches and began seeing spots. When she began struggling to breathe, my dad rushed her to the ER. When the nurse took her pressure, they noticed it was crazy high. She had to be hospitalized that very instant. This could cause the placenta to separate from her uterus, lead to the baby being stillborn, and it also has a whole list of terrible problems for the mom as well. So yeah, as I said, it was a mess. The problem was, my mom was only 30 weeks along. There were still 8 to 10 weeks left for my sister and me to be ready to be born. The doctor explained that they needed to do a C-section immediately, and Mom desperately wanted to wait. They couldn't convince her otherwise, and she was hospitalized for an entire week. She couldn't even stand up from her bed. It was then that the situation grew so dire that Mom had no choice but to agree to the surgery. Her babies, that would be my sister and myself, would have to stay a long time in NICU before we got to go home. My mom was devastated, but there was nothing she could do to change this fact. Now, you might be wondering what happened next. During the surgery, my mom's heart stopped beating. It's something that very, very rarely happens during these kinds of procedures, but Mom was one of the few unlucky ones. Freaking out, Dad stayed with her instead of following the nurse with his two twin girls. That's where whatever went wrong occurred. No one knows what happened during those few minutes, but when my dad finally realized he had to go be with us, we were already in our special cribs, covered in pulse oximeters, nasogastric tubes, and umbilical catheters. Not a pretty sight. Dad noticed there was another pair of twins there as well, along with another few preemie babies. He didn't think much at the moment, of course, but looking back, he wishes he had asked about it. He was told that we were his babies, and he didn't even think about doubting this fact. We were so tiny and vulnerable, and all he wanted to do was protect us. We were in there for over a month, and it wasn't easy breezy either. My sister had to go through a surgery, and I stopped breathing twice, but was always brought back by the amazing nurse who worked there. In the end, though, Mom and Dad got to take Sierra and me home, and they've always told us that was the happiest day of their lives. Yeah, our mom and dad were awesome and super loving. They called us their miracle babies, and we felt so special because of this. At first, we were kind of sheltered. I'm not going to lie. Mom was so worried something would end up happening to us. She had been so lucky once, she didn't want to risk the odds a second time. But as we grew strong and happy, she realized it was best to let us play outside and make new friends. It was healthy for us. Now, even though they were super happy to have us in their lives, they did joke how different we looked from everyone in our family. At first, they did joke a bit about the possibility of us having been switched by other twin preemies. They thought it was funny, at least at first. After a while, Mom began feeling uncomfortable about the joke for some reason. Like, she had a bad feeling about it every single time she spoke of the subject. So, she decided to let go of this issue and pretend she wasn't worried about it at all. She adored us and didn't want anything to get in the way of raising us. Honestly, if you ask me, I think that maybe she sort of knew, or at least really suspected it was possible. But she denied this fact, even to herself, because the truth was too horrible. Mom and Dad never showed us anything but love. We were their children, and they treated us as such. Now, the thing is, the more we grew, the less and less we looked like them. We had these big blonde curls and cute blue eyes. Mom and Dad were olive-skinned and had very dark hair. Even our noses, our lips, and face shape were so totally different. People began asking if we were adopted, but Mom and Dad brushed off those remarks. They just replied that a great-grandmother must have been a beautiful blonde woman. Like I said, as far as my research goes, no, there wasn't any such relative. When we turned 15, the truth of the matter was my sister and I had questions. So many questions. And my parents were finally ready to face the music. So they said that we should take a DNA test and finally clear the air. If we were their biological children, we'd drop the issue for good. If not, well, we'd take it from there. The test results took over 3 weeks to arrive. I've never been more nervous, believe me. My sister and I held hands while my mom opened the letter. Her hands were trembling. It was that moment that I realized she was really worried that we wouldn't be her biological daughters, and that she had been asking this question to herself from the moment they brought us home. My mom read the results out loud, and it turned out we weren't their biological children. Imagine the shock on everyone's faces. The kitchen was super quiet for a full minute until my mom finally began sobbing. My sister and I rushed to her and hugged her tightly. We kept on telling her, "Mom, we love you. You'll always be our mother, no matter what that paper says." After everyone calmed down, we decided as a family that we'd research the issue further. First, Mom and Dad went to the hospital. It was there that we must have been switched while Dad was too distracted with Mom's condition to follow behind us. He really blamed himself for what happened, but we told him he had nothing to feel bad about. The hospital got super defensive and told them that they were in no way responsible for it. Imagine that big man in a crisp suit claiming that they were on the clear and we must have been the ones who messed up somehow. Yeah, that won't stand. My mom and dad hired a lawyer to sue the hospital, and they'll be forced to admit their mistake and make amends. But that didn't give us any immediate answers. So Dad hired a PI to research all the information he could. This means finding the other families who had twins during that period of time in that specific hospital. This will take some time because none of the info is public, and there were many steps to take before the data is actually released. We hope that in time all the answers will be given to us, but we know that we need to be patient about it. Mom and Dad want to know what happened to their biological children, but they also don't want us to think that they love us any less. We know that, of course. No matter what we discover in the future, for me and Sierra, Mom and Dad will always be exactly that. Mom and Dad. We would like to meet our biological parents, though, to know what they are like, and perhaps to create some kind of connection with the people who brought us into this world. Plus, I'm very curious about these other two twins. In a way, I sort of feel like they are our siblings. Not by blood, of course, but my mom and dad are their biological parents and vice versa. Perhaps they are all wonderful people and we can extend the family. My mom and dad totally deserve to meet their real children. I don't feel threatened by their existence because I know full well that my parents will never stop loving me and my sister. Sierra is freaking out a bit more than I am, but she's still eager to discover more information about this other family. To this day, the search continues. We did settle with the hospital out of court, and they gave us a big payoff. The problem is, they don't keep records after 10 or 11 years of any incident, so it's impossible to know the names of the other babies born that day. The PI is hopeful he'll manage to eventually make some progress, but so far, there hasn't been any good news. I can't help but wonder how different my life would have been if my sister and I went home with our biological families. Would they have been as loving as our mom and dad? Would we have been happy? There are so many what ifs running in my mind. Sierra isn't quite as eager to discover anything else about this whole mess. She was so shocked about the DNA test that I don't think she has been able to get over it yet. I think in time, she'll begin feeling the same way I did, but I can't be sure. Thanks for watching. Would you want to meet your biological parents if you discovered that you were adopted? Let us know in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel.